Well, thank you everybody for coming to the LCA September Poetry and Literature Evening event, and on this occasion we have the great pleasure of a regular member, Richard J. Smith, who's going to tell us about his poetic vision of life in the 21st century. So Richard, over to you.
Great pleasure, you live in hope. Now, because of the short time constraints for various factors, the arrangement is I will be going on to about between 8:15 and 8:20, and there'll be a break and then I'll have to finish. So I'm afraid there doesn't seem to be time for the usual open time. I hope that's not too much of a disappointment, but we are under time constraints. Also, I think it's very important that we keep to the theme of tonight. Originally it was called The Past Times, but as usual I changed the title slightly and called it Dangerous Times, exploring the past 20 years through poetry. If you view this session as a kind of a history lecture in poetical form, you won't be far wrong. And I'm doing something that is unprecedented for the LCA, and that is trying to convey what it has been like for the last 20 years. Now, many things have happened, so I've had to be selective about some of the trends I do. I'd like, for instance, to have said more about scientific achievements, but I can only give a passing mention. And there are other things which I think are very important. So it's good, and I will introduce each poem just to give you slight background. So it's called Dangerous Times, exploring the past 20 years through poetry prelude, and I'll be covering the time from 9/11 right through to the events in recent months. I'll also end with a speech which will record what Winston Churchill would have said about the latest debacle in Afghanistan. Yes, he'll get a mention. And also, at a personal level, it is a retrospective because I'm bringing together poems I've written over the decades, some of which you've heard before, some of which you never hear again. But so, September 2001. The towers have fallen. The towers are crumpled. Nearly 3,000 are dead. A new and terrible age of strife has begun. And the first part covers the period from 2001 to 2010. And the first poem in this section will look at a trend largely unnoticed, but I believe explains where we are. As you may be gathering, the stress here is far more on education rather than entertainment. But I'll try and do the odd funny bit. And it's called House of Darkness. The Church of God has become a house of darkness, crammed with ambition, headed for perdition, full of lies and many sighs, lots of corruption, plenty of destruction, steely pride, much to hide, torrents of sorrow, but no tomorrow. Weep for those whose hearts are bleeding. In prayer let's all continue pleading. Trust in the Lord, don't be bored. Have faith in the Son, to him let's all come. The Church of God has become a house of darkness, and what an awful sight it is. And here we can think of the child abuse scandals in the Roman Catholic Church and similar scandals elsewhere. Now, one of the biggest trends of the last 20 years has been the internet revolution. I could have said tons on that, on cyberspace. But I want to share a brief extract here. Well, it's an extract from a large poem of mine called The Shattering, which was compiled from 2009 to 2014, and it's called PC Gamesters. PC Gamesters play their fantasy lies. Virtual reality has become actual reality, but their understanding of reality has been shredded into 1,000 little pieces. False identities are eagerly assumed on the website Dreamscape. For them, reality is illusion, and illusion is reality. reality and illusion is one. And I think we are seeing a breakdown of reality, particularly amongst vulnerable teenagers at this present time. Now the other topic, which is quite literally a hot topic at the present time, as it was also coming to the fore in the first decade, is climate change. I wrote this in 2007 to cheer myself up while on holiday in Penzance, Cornwall. See the dreary parched landscape, desolate of any life. Hear the crackle of all-consuming fire as buildings and fields are engulfed. Taste the gritty dust stinging on the tongue. Yell with searing pain of glowing red cinders as they settle on fire-dried skin. Shake with terror at the bubbling menace of a lifeless sea, whose aeon-trapped methane belches to the surface. Stare transfixed with bloodshot eyes at the self-inflicted extinction of the human race. Now, in the early part of the 21st century, we had the new atheists, people like Dawkins, Dennett, Christopher Hitchens, the God delusion and all that, boasting that God is dead and all the rest of it. And I think the move to atheism and secularism is responsible for much of the madness we see in our country. In my book, The Exit Machine, I show and portray how an atheist, completely secular worldview leads to a mass extermination society. Read it if you want some light reading. And it's called Post-Ginsbergian Howl. Ginsberg was a beat poet of the 1950s who wrote a poem called Howl. Howl, Dawkins, Dennett and Grayling, howl you unholy trinity of scoffers, howl you failed champions of humanity, howl, weep and wail because your dream of a progressive, secular and moral social order melts before the fires of reality. It shrivels and blackens before your eyes. The god of battles is back to inflict a terrible vengeance. Howl, you titans of mockery, howl as you see dark religious passion tear the world apart with a pitiless hatred. Howl as you see the ruthless champions of a merciless deity rush into the moral vacuum which you helped create. Howl, howl, howl as this wrathful God returns to wage a holy war against the decadence your atheism initially spawned. Let fail to deliver be the epitaph of the secular humanism you represented. Now, in 2005, we had the charming Leeds suicide bombers. Remember them? Yeah. Try not to look so too nostalgic. June and I were living near the bomb factory, and if it had gone up when I was walking past it, I would be here entertaining you now. And the area was swarming with police afterwards. And on the 19th of July, shortly after the arrests of knowledge of the perpetrators, I wrote this poem called Fanatic. It's trying to get into the minds of these people. My Yorkshire accent is a perfect disguise, a sign of integration, a sign of commendation, a sign of social recognition. A typical Leeds loiner, I appear, all the better to deceive you, the godless. Perfect. Now for my mission. By day I teach, by night I preach hatred, raw hatred for you who don't share my struggle. Bayek, a reckoning is due. Tomorrow I kill, the blood of you, the godless, will flow. In crimson torrents it will flow. My soul is satisfied, my place in paradise is assured, a martyr's reward for me, and a respected place in history. You, my own dear family, will be greatly honoured. Now, for a lighter note, do we all miss him? I referred to Tony Blair. Anyone missing him?
Yes.
Compared with what we've got now, let's see why. And I wrote this poem, Butterfly Blair, when it was just going out. And someone from the Labour Party just said, I actually got him perfectly. This was when I read it out in the Oxfam bookshop. It's called Butterfly Blair. I am Butterfly Blair, with my fixed grin stare. I enjoy raging Chancellor Slug Brown, seeing his green-eyed face creased in a frown. With my gorgeous pink wings, I'm free to do many things, soaring into the sky forever on a warm high. I flutter and I flitter, whilst my critics fuss and twitter. High on the clouds I spin round and round. while Slug Brown languishes on the ground. I skip prettily from flower to flower, while all the enemies sulk and glower. A most rare species of butterfly am I. Oh, Sherry, give me an adoring sigh. I live in a world of make-believe. My intention, of course, is never to deceive. Up in the air I giddily saw, will Slug Brown's face ever thaw? A regular sort of butterfly am I. How in love with myself, oh my! How happily I twirl around and around. Why, Slug Brown, despite being Prime Minister, you're still on the ground. That was one of my funny ones. Now, I remember Carol was present, and I'd like to dedicate this session to the memory of Carol, who was the midwife of my talent. Came the economic crash. And I remember reading this poem back in 2008 or 9. I think it's written in September 2008, yes, shortly after the crash. And people just said it caught the atmosphere of the time perfectly. And it's called Meltdown. The world's gone insane, lusting for financial gain. Investors in pain, shares lose value, currencies devalue. Banks cease to trade as debts cascade and go unpaid. Executives resign, that's a bad sign. It's come to a head, panic will spread. There's no bread, city too much greed, wealth can't breed. Shares take a massive tumble, stockbrokers fumble. Apologies they mumble, assets quickly go. Credit doesn't flow. A crash is here, bankers quake with fear, pundits play their seer, calamity wasn't seen, but that's another theme. A new order is born, as many mourn, the goods they pawn, lots of revulsion amidst global convulsion. In this night, no remedy in sight, reasons taken flight. In a mood of gloom, economists see doom. It's all very sad, the world's gone mad, people crying, we've been had. Now, the last poem of this section is a tribute to our scientific achievements, because there was the Martian rover on Gale crater some years ago, and I thought, let's celebrate the scientific breakthroughs. I'd love to have said something about some of the other discoveries, like the flyby of Pluto and all the rest of it. So this is a bit of a celebration. So it's not quite all doom and gloom, just mainly doom and gloom. It's called the Martian rover. On the desolate surface of Mars, the Curiosity rover trundles around the red rubble-strewn surface of Gale crater, taking photos that astonish scientists the world over. It shoots laser beams into rocks to test their consistency. Will it succeed in its mission in finding traces of life? Who knows? But it's odd that so much can be achieved on another planet 100 million miles away, and so little back home on Earth. So welcome to the period of 2011 till now. So now moving up the time and moving along the decades in this poetic history lesson. And this one is called Prince of Terror. It's based on the reading of the book of Ezekiel about the fall of the king of Tyre, but I've updated it and applied it. A lot of my poetry is inspired by the Bible, particularly the Lamentations and the rest of it. So it's called Prince of Terror, and this was provoked in response to the capture and assassination of Ben Laden. He's the man referred to here. Oh, how you have fallen, O Prince of Terror, you who held the world in fear. Now you have become nothing. Your remains, like those of your victims, lie in an unmarked grave. Behold, hell is astir at your arrival. The damned look up and throw you a dead-eyed glaze. Those whom you misled into becoming suicide bombers, in their tormented bitterness they sneer. Is this the paradise you promised us? Those whom you so casually murdered exclaim, ha! We've got justice at last. Former terrorist godfathers and tyrants of old mock. Where is your power and glory now? Like us, you who were once so great have become nothing. Why, you didn't even receive a state funeral. When relaying your death, newspapers barely conceal their smirks. There is widespread rejoicing at how justice has been meted out. Only your fellow terrorists mourn, and like you, they too will face an eternity of an endless accusation from those they misled. Welcome to hell, O Prince of Terror. It is your fitting home. Now, someone that now, Ben Laden represented the Danish religious fanaticism from another part of the world. But our own society produced our own devil, not only produced him, but pampered him and gave him opportunities to abuse hundreds of people. So this one is called Saint Jim, and then it was written in response to the revelations of Jimmy Savile. Once upon a time, the BBC showbiz personality was hailed as an eccentric saint. So many people loved him, both young and old. Knighthoods and many other awards came his way. He inspired joy and happiness wherever he went. With his wide, playful grin, trademark dyed blonde hair, and inane yodels. Forever sporting his phallic cigar, it seemed as if he could fix anything. But following his death at the age of 84, he was found to be a monster of child-molesting depravity. Many an innocent childhood memory he wantonly violated. Hundreds of his guys and gals sacrificed on the altar of social permissiveness. For them, the age of liberation had been a sham. The result, mental disconnection all around. A BBC Director General squirms before a committee of MPs, unable or unwilling to answer their pointed interrogation, all about cover-ups and sexual abuse on BBC premises. He's a middle-aged Billy Bunter about to be caned. Blushing a deep red, he feels the trapdoor of public disgrace opening beneath his feet. He's Piggy about to be knocked over a cliff edge in Golding's Lord of the Flies. The trapdoor opens and he's gone, fallen deep into the memory hole of public forgetfulness. As horrific allegations of sexual abuse multiply, it's time to ask, was Mary Whitehouse right after all? Now, the next one explores what I call the multi-sexual revolution, or the global sexual revolution. And it is entirely autobiographical, and it actually happened in August 2013, following a gay pride march in Manchester. And it's called Heckled Preacher. Outside a Manchester shopping centre, a preacher, part of a multiracial team, spoke a message of grace and love. I was gently waving a black-covered Bible in the air. The message he gave was conventional enough, stating that we were all sinners, that Christ died for our sins, that we need to be born again and place our faith in Jesus Christ alone. Absent was any anger, any harshness, any mention of controversial issues. Given here was just a simple old-time gospel message that focused exclusively on Jesus Christ. There was nothing that had not been said before by many a preacher for hundreds of years past. However, it was Gay Pride Week, and following the Gay Pride March, feelings were running high. Standing around him was a hostile swarm of smartly dressed teenage lesbians, defiantly waving their rainbow-coloured flags. Standing behind them was a bespectacled, ruddy-faced heckler, shouting out in a German accent, "Lies, lies, nothing but lies!" As the preacher continued his good-natured delivery, the heckling only got worse and worse. Suddenly, slender female hands snatched his Bible away, hurling it contemptuously onto the pavement at my feet. I quickly picked it up to hand it back at him. Suddenly, I found myself in a rugby scrum of bodies, all shouting and screeching to try and snatch it back. I pushed my way forward, successfully handing the Bible back to the preacher. With gracious patience, he resumed his discourse until the police arrived to break up the meeting. Politely but firmly, they took down statements, the girl suddenly assuming an air of demure innocence, whilst the heckler silently walked away. During that afternoon, a secret was revealed. A once persecuted community, having long campaigned for its own rights and freedoms, now risks becoming a persecuting community, determined to silence even the gentlest form of dissent. Right, I'll probably skip that one. And now, one of the greatest news is, on the news, has been knife crime, particularly in places like London. And what I try and do is get into the mind of a gang member. And while I'm writing a novel, I'm having to get into different minds and different bodies. It's quite a challenge, but I'm thriving on it. I don't know whether I'm going to be thriving on proofreading. And it's called In It. Hey man! They call me Big Bad Sam. I've just nicked a load of stuff from a van. King on the streets am I. Disrespect me and you'll die. My mum was busted for stealing. For me she had no feeling. Druggy deadbeat dad, I never saw. Was found dead on some squat floor. Join me in my rap, it ain't no pack. Don't be a fool, that just ain't cool. Now buy me a beer and fear what you hear. To live another day, listen to what I have to say. Show zeal when you steal, end strife with a knife, have fun with a gun, make a quick game, inflict a load of pain. It's a big man's feat to fight on the street. Blow your enemies away, kick them out of the way. Show off your bling, let that be your thing. Lay with bitches, they're nothing but witches. Live for the day, there's no hell to pay. Laugh at a court fine, enjoy life of crime. Inflict much terror, that ain't no error. In your raging hate, destroy your estate. In this endless nightmare, chill others with your stare. I'll soon be dead, a bullet in my head. But I don't care a damn, because I am what I am. And that's life, in it. Now we come to what I call COVID. Now I could have said quite a lot about the American election, but it's too long. But this is COVID. Viral Vista. Empty roads, shuttered shops, silent streets, few pedestrians, discarded face masks, unfamiliar silence, congested lungs, unseen killer virus, imposed lockdown, wailing siren, speeding ambulance, another death, crowded wards, endless fatalities, exhausted staff, media panic, confounded experts, no end in sight. That's a haiku, by the way, if you want to go to technicalities. But there were chances and opportunities in the pandemic. And I found, thanks to the pandemic, I've developed my skills as a writer and even to some degree as a poet. Doors open to me through Zoom to go to read poetry to people as far afield as the Afro-American community, Abu Dhabi and South Africa. That's what Zoom did. But this is called pandemic chances. Despite much tragedy, the pandemic lockdown can offer many chances. There exists a chance to reflect on deep issues, a chance to revive old interests, a chance to revel in natural beauty, a chance to reassess our values, a chance to reset our priorities, a chance to repair broken items, a chance to reach out to others, a chance to restore old friendships. Above all, there remains a chance to relish the life we have now. Now, I would like to give more themes, exploring the themes of the dangerous times we live in. I'd love to. But if I tried, I know what the result will be. It will be cancellation. So rather than brood and get upset, I thought I'd anticipate that happy fate by writing my latest poem, or one of my latest ones, called Cancelled. I wrote it on July the 26th, and the 1962 hit song, Where Have All the Flowers Gone, I kept running through my head while I was writing this piece, and it's called Cancelled. Part 1, Questioning. And by the way, it expresses 3 different viewpoints, so imagine 3 different people, okay? In each part. So part 1, Questioning. Where have all the poets gone? They've been cancelled, every one. Where have all the comedians gone? They've been cancelled, every one. Where have all the entertainers gone? They've been cancelled, every one. Through fear they have been rendered dumb. The rest of us are now both mute and dumb. Part 2. Ideological possession. Do not presume to have your say. Our ideology is the one to stay. Should you display a questioning mind, have no doubt you'll get heavenly find. Your language we determinedly abuse, our jargons be designed to confuse, minor slogans we all loudly shout, they give us cause, not extra clout. Scoff or laugh at our absurdity, and we'll jail you for your perversity. We raise our clenched fists in the air to give you, the public, a fearful scare. An organised base we assiduously create, allowing our opinions to propagate. Our enlightened ideals we fiercely descend, reactionary critics to a gulag we send. Of course we allow you to be free, as long as it's with us you assuredly agree. Seizing total state power as our main aim, using it to wantonly inflict endless pain. Our beliefs are perfect in every way, among enemies they cause severe dismay. Social media hate bombs we often drop, causing our enemies to falter and stop. We eagerly fabricate an endless array of deceptions, purposefully weakening your fragile perceptions. Through surveillance we exercise control, your hidden thoughts we eagerly patrol. A new tyranny is coming here, it loves to rule through abject fear. Part 3, Defiance. But wake up and see, attempts to enforce political conformity represent a cruel and twisted deformity. We must value our freedom now, lest before cruel masters we bow. This is a lesson to digest and learn before we and others start to burn. Avoid giving out a defeatist sigh, begin by rejecting every hateful lie. Desist from believing any false news, avoid seeking escape in endless booze. Don't be useless and forever bland, when the time is right, take a stand. Take courage, be brave, dare to be strong, and defy those who are dangerously wrong. Embrace the truth with deliberation, only then will you find true liberation. Now, this one we didn't think this year could begin to get any worse was the debacle in Afghanistan, where an American president has surrendered women and girls to savage rapists. I could say more about the Taliban, I won't. Their mindset is recorded in Fanatic. And now we've been in this area before, because as a historian, I think in terms of centuries. That's one thing I have in common with the Vatican. It's the only thing I have in common with the Vatican. And in October 1938, Chamberlain had come back from Munich waving his piece of paper saying peace in our time. And he was hailed as a hero. He'd ended the commitment at the price of the dismemberment and the loss of Czechoslovakia. A lot of people, including the media, were impressed. But one man wasn't impressed, and that was Winston Churchill, who gave a speech in the House of Commons about the Munich Agreement in October 1938. What I have done is I've updated the references and made it contemporary, because I'm sure he would say very similar things about the debacle in Afghanistan. And believe me, that's only beginning, not an end. I will begin by saying what everybody would like to ignore or forget, but which must nevertheless be stated, namely that we have sustained a total and unmitigated defeat, and the USA have suffered even more than we have. And I will say this, that I believe the Afghans left to themselves and told they were going to get no help from the Western powers would have been able to make better terms than they have got. They could hardly have been worse after this tremendous disturbance. I've always held the view that the maintenance of peace depends on the accumulation of deterrence against the aggressor, coupled with a sincere effort to redress grievances. After the Taliban siege of the border crossings, I ventured to appeal to the government to give a pledge that in conjunction with the USA and other powers they would guarantee the security of Afghanistan, while the safety of Kabul question was being examined, either by the United Nations Commission or some other impartial body, and I still believe that if that course had been followed, events would not have fallen into this disastrous state. If the Taliban leadership should choose to look westward, as they may, bitterly will the USA and England regret the loss of the well-equipped army of Afghanistan, which was estimated to have lasted for months. Many people, no doubt, honestly believe they are only giving away the interests of Afghanistan, whereas I fear we shall find that we have deeply compromised and perhaps fatally endangered the safety and even the independence of Great Britain and the United States. There can never be friendship between the British democracy and the Taliban power. That power can never be the trusted friend of the British democracy. They are set to plunge Afghanistan back into a dark age, made all the worse by being justified by religious fervour. Our brave people should know the truth. They should know that there has been a gross neglect and deficiency in our defences. They should know that we have sustained a defeat without a war, the consequences of which will travel far with us along our road. They should know that we have passed an awful milestone in our history, when the whole equilibrium of the world has been deranged and the terrible words have for the time being been pronounced against the Western democracies. Thou art weighed in a balance and found wanting. And do not suppose that this is the end. This is only the beginning of the reckoning and a whole chain of humiliations that will bring the West low. Afghanistan has been the first draught from a large cup containing a very bitter drink. So pause and reflect on that, because I think those words are going to be very, very true. And I weep for the Afghanistan women, and I thoroughly despise Joe Biden. If Trump was a noisy disaster, Joe Biden is a quiet disaster. And I think tragically, he may well have paved the way for more 9/11s in America. Right, now let's see what they can do. Now, evil is never more dangerous than when it's cloaked by spurious humanity. And there's something. Now the Taliban, whatever else you may say about them, they're obvious. If you don't follow the way, they just want to kill you. And they're even starting to fall out and kill each other. Oh, nice. Like a crew of pirates. So they're saying that thieves fall out, and that's already happening among the Taliban. They're obvious. But we must not forget there's a far more subtle kind of evil, which is homegrown, emerging within our culture. And it's an evil in the name of a humanitarianism. Now, I mix thoughts because I am not, I have seen in the last 2 years my mother go into decline and die, and thankfully she retained the mental facilities into the end. I've known about June's aunts dying in a far worse way than my mother, so I'm not pro at the endless prolongation of life. There has to come a point, I believe, when medical treatment where you say we've done all we can, we need the resources for people who are likely to benefit from it. I'm not an ultra fanatic about that. But there is now a push to go beyond that and to recommend assisted dying and suicide. It's being campaigned by the Sunday Times. Now, there's a problem there. It founders on the question, who will do the killing? Let's get rid of nice words like mercy and euthanasia and assisted suicide. It's killing. If it's going to be the medical staff, then do you think people who've been through the trauma are going to be happy about giving the lethal injection with the trauma corona? I think not. Therefore, you will need specialists. And what kind of people are you going to attract in that kind of the euthanasia profession? I'll read this book and you'll find out. And I think it's getting, and it's also, there's a perfect storm coming, because the NHS is under tremendous strain. Our economy is severely weakened. So you could have cutbacks in the name of humanity, but the cutbacks won't be on finance, but on human life. We are in very, very perilous times and dangerous times. And I feel morally obliged to warn people that this is the situation we face. So if euthanasia, and I'm talking about active euthanasia, not withdrawing medical treatment when it's come to the pass, comes to pass, what kind of society will be the result of it? Well, forget all the talk about compassion and mercy killing and all that. That's fun. It'd be very convenient to save money on the NHS. And I wrote this poem down 10 years ago in 2004, We Shall Live. And I hate to say it, but a lot of it's coming to pass. I shudder at some of my previous writings because some of them are coming to pass, and it's called We Shall Live. And this is not about the past, this is about the warning of the future we could face. And as George Orwell said on his deathbed after writing in 1984, it's up to us, don't let it happen. We shall live in a mass extermination society where death as a right will become death as a duty. The old, infirm and terminally ill, all targets for a mass medical kill. Those deemed a burden to the state will find euthanasia to be their fate. The unwanted elderly with money in a bank, now due to die with grasping relatives to thank. Patients tremble with helpless dread. Soon they'll be among the discarded dead. White-coated staff prepare a lethal injection. Their humanity now in a state of subjection. Mini shipmens they've all become, with heavy sedation their victims are numb. Another useless life to finish, their unwanted definitely will diminish. Drug administration, all done by machine. Psychologically, that's much more clean. Termination targets to complete. Now the disabled begin to deplete. White-coat brutality is the norm, no longer any conscience to be born. Teams compete to terminate quicker, ensuring that life won't continue to flicker. Board administrators complete the paperwork, important duties they dare not shirk. No Nuremberg trial they're having to face, with names as statistics on a secret database. As hospital mortuaries fill up, financial budgets must add up. Funds allocated to buy a new freezer lorry, pungent smells have caused some worry. Spare body parts can be extracted, helpful laws have been enacted. No worries about a compensation claim, there's no one around to take the blame. In this country compassion has fled, the mildly sick may soon join the dead. A fresh government decree adds names to a list, including political dissenters, they do insist. Cardboard coffins will now be mandatory, highly ecological and highly inflammatory. They will increase any saving, resulting in fewer bills needing paying. It's our evolutionary duty to eliminate the weak. Our species won't be to propagate the meek. Good and evil comprise the cosmic one, and into a blissful nirvana we shall all come. Auschwitz-Birkenau provided a terrible warning, but why should we bother with endless mourning? Just forget the millions plus who are slain, thinking about them causes too much pain. Once death was inflicted by stealth, now it's free on the national health. Dignance has laid the groundwork, painful duties it did not shirk. The media was full of helpful fools, for our cause they provided useful tools. Celebrity endorsement was the key, they generously waived any fee. Do-it-yourself death was boldly sold, all human love was growing cold. The unwanted dead go up in billowing smoke, give crematorium furnaces a good old stoke. Perhaps some use for them can be found, otherwise let's scatter the ashes on the ground. Compassion has died, politicians have lied, nowhere to hide from the euthanasia tide. The future ain't going to be much fun, because in the end we'll all get done. We're becoming a mass extermination society, where death as a right is now death as a duty. La la la. So, I think it's time now to try and give you a break, but let's sum up where we are now. And then
Yeah, do play your song, yeah.
yeah. What I've done is I've tried to do the trends for the last 20 years of various things. Now, there was so much more. I'd love to have done a lot more on America, because I believe America could easily descend into a violent civil war, the way things are going. What we see in Syria and the former Yugoslavia could be yesterday, could be America tomorrow. I won't go into all that. I'd like to have a more positive celebration of scientific achievements and works of art. But time prevents me from doing so. But my intention throughout this whole session is not to entertain. It's time for that in other sessions when I bring in the owl. Don't worry, he'll be making a reappearance. But there are times when it's right to grab you by the throat and make you think and to question where things are going. I hope I've done that. Thank you for listening.
Well, if you'd like to take a short break and maybe get a cup of tea, which is there's the cafe just around the corner, and we'll meet again in a few minutes. Okay, thanks a lot.
You.
Right, thank you everybody. Well, we've just got a short 15-minute session with Richard to finish off the evening, and I'm told there will be a little bit of audience participation before we're over. So off we go.
Now we all hear about fake news, don't we?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have tried to refrain from giving you fake news this evening because I'm wanting it to be horribly true news. Always more effective in causing misery. Now, the whole thing fake news wasn't really new. You could trace the latest outbreak to the spin doctors of Tony Blair. And I'm going to read one of my hits called Spin Doctor, dedicated to a certain Peter Manson of beloved memory. And perhaps not. It's called Spin Doctor. And it shows the perversion of the media. I am the doctor of spin, who obeys his master's every whim. The public, you, the public, I scorn as dim. A web of half-truths I eagerly manufacture. A cluster bomb of lies I scatter. Misleading assurances are my forte. Sly innuendos, my expertise. I know how to damn with faint praise. I know what bad news to bury. I know its successes to broadcast. I know what good sound bites to give as an informed source, privy to inside information, of course. There is much news to fabricate, all for a healthy cause. The shadows are where I like to dwell. Backroom intrigues are my love, ceaseless plotting my game. With an unattributable comment, I can destroy my master's enemies or my own. Oh, I adore the thrill of power, the influential ear to bend, the story to invent, the reputation to subtly undermine. I know when to threaten, whom to cajole, how to flatter. I know when to tell a risky joke to be one of the lads. Infinitely adaptable am I, putty in my master's hands. Flexibility is my strength, a knighthood or peerage in view. A demeanour of modesty, I must assume, bowing and scraping, crawling and fawning, calling her dear majesty ma'am. Dark secrets are safe with me for payment of a large fee. Your firm friend I will be. There is no such thing as truth, only media representation, aided by slick presentation. My only God is self, a postmodernist am I, no matter what that may signify. As a philosophy, it's most inconvenient. His view of things I find expedient. My master, of course, I will betray. When he starts to wobble from high office, I will help him topple. A new master will find my services indispensable. Watch out if he doesn't. Frank memoirs I will publish on a poor spin doctor's plight. These will tell all, and yet say nothing. Into the limelight I will tread, with a bold strutting step. My soul I will bear through a lot of hot air. royalty checks to gain, a taste of 5 minutes fame. Under the bright studio light, I will look a well-groomed sight. A confessional interview to make, whilst always busy on the take. My own praises I will sing, for I am the doctor of spin. Do obey my every whim. Now, let's have a look at this one. This one is cyber power. You're thinking, when are you going to participate? Well, I'll keep you on long wait. This is called cyber power, and again, haven't we seen an enormous increase in cyber power through the social media? And I've known the social media destroy people, but I also known it save people from suicide. It seems to amplify both the good and the evil in our society. But this is called cyber power. At the end of a switch, I begin to flow. Through many a fibre optic cable I go. On innumerable screens I flash to produce a wad of virtual cash. At the speed of light go I. In self-promotion I'm not shy. I am here, yes, 24/7 to offer a pornographic heaven. Endless opportunities I produce. The gullible masses I love to seduce. Many a business I have cause to fall. Fail to use me and you'll go to the wall. I am the power that fills every land, especially when operating on broadband. The best and worst of human nature I reflect. Negative criticism I find easy to deflect. Tremble at the dominance I have now won. Thanks to me, your world will become one. Under my guidance, humanity will unite. In the age of blinding cyber light and rotting moral night. Now we go on to page 48. And this is where you kind people are going to contribute. Because I want you to practice going tap, tap, tap as if you're keyboarding. Say after me, tap, tap, tap.
Tap, 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 tap.
And pretend you're keyboarding. Tap, tap, tap. Or using a mobile phone, whatever. And it's called Separate Worlds. And it's a transcript of a dinner party where guests are using their mobile phones to send text messages just as starters for a lavish meal are being served. Have you ever attended functions like that? Or gathering of people who are on? Yes, you have. I can tell. So we start. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. The bejewelled and beautifully gowned hostess looks on with increasing agitation at her seated guests. A sumptuous dining table is covered with a best linen cloth, and candles flicker dancingly here and there. But no one notices. Your soup is getting cold. I think it's time to eat now, she suddenly states. In unison, her several guests reply, tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. Look of despair crosses her face, so she takes out her mobile phone and sends a text message to a friend about these awful guests who will not communicate. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. That's it. Well, thank you for your participation. You didn't really do that as well. No, I didn't do too badly. All right, flatter the audience, otherwise you won't come again. Right. Was there anyone there? All right. Now, around this going full cycle, because I really, and I know I've said this to the point of monotony to one or two people, especially my wife, is I think that the roots of our crisis in Western society lies in the abandonment of the Judeo-Christian heritage. We've tried atheism and it's created a vacuum which anything can fill. I remember the scripture passage, and Jude and I saw evidence of the fulfilment of that in the burnt house in Jerusalem, which had been destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. That when Jesus was talking about the nation of Israel, and he said, when the devil is cast out of a person, he wanders the wilderness and comes back with 6 or 7 devils worse than itself. And I can't help wondering that when Christianity drove out a lot of evil, Christianity in this country has died. And now the original devil is coming back with spirits worse than itself. And we both, June and I, saw the results of that. Because if Jesus was then applying it to the ancient Israel, we saw as a result of that in Jerusalem, seeing the burnt house and other signs of what the Romans did. So I'm back to where I think it's the fundamental problem. And now, a lot of us don't like political correctness or the woke culture. I don't. My son's nearly destroyed by it, so it's a bit personal. But I think the woke culture is a symptom of something else. I think the seedbed of the woke culture is atheism. Atheism provided the manure, the militant cultural Marxism is the weed that's grown from it. And it's a poisonous, strangulating weed. And I know I've run into political correctness myself about 3 times, and I know you have. So this is called a Judas kiss. By the way, you can understand after reading this why I don't exactly get on vicars and ministers of religion very often. This is an age of apostasy, an age where there's next to no faith on earth, an age where church leaders cease to believe in Jesus, an age where church members have itching ears for error, an age where falsehood abounds and truth is despised, an age where each person pursues their own interests, regardless of the cost to others, an age where the gospel is silenced and the way of salvation is deliberately forgotten. Truly these are perilous times, calling for endurance by the few who know their Lord. Each present person does what is right in their own eyes. Most are addicted to pleasure, whilst a few are driven by a fanatical intensity that is closed to reason. Mighty apostates in gaudy robes sit in council, plotting to follow the one who deserves no name. He who will dazzle many with his promises, only to reap destruction on the earth. Surely those in the church who abandon Christ will follow an antichrist. That is their judgment. Weep and howl. The church has abandoned God. Instead it follows the destructive ideals of a rebellious world. Once more, Jesus has been betrayed by a Judas kiss. And that's where we are. So, I think it's right now to bring things to a close. I'm open to people to want discussion questions afterwards. But I think let's sum everything up now. Let's bring everything together. As you can guess, I believe our society is in doo-doo. You know what I mean by doo-doo? Up to its neck, or even beyond in the grey mucky stuff. I believe that the causes of that situation are many and various, and that many factors are at play, some of which I've explored. But I believe that in the Western society that the root cause has been the abandonment of Christianity. I really sense in that one, you who sow the wind will reap the whirlwind. One thing that haunts me and has influenced me to speak out so boldly to friends and dear friends is a visit I undertook with my eldest and youngest son almost 10 years ago to Auschwitz-Birkenau. And one lesson I took home from that awful, hellish place was by the time you have something like that in a society, it's too late to do anything. It is when you get intolerance, when you get evil, when you get the perversion of truth, you deal with it at an early stage. And in one sense, when I was at Auschwitz, I stood at the ruins of the gas chambers where thousands were murdered, and then behind some woodland, and I took a vow that if I saw similar trends emerge in our society, I would speak out loud and clear. I am now discharging that vow. Thank you for listening.
Well, thanks very much, Richard. It's very interesting and provoking, thought-provoking presentation for us this evening. So we'd just like to thank you again. I hope that you'll be able to come back for our future events. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you.